now go to the usual reasons given for Islamic terrorism, what I call the root cause fallacy. The explanations for Islamic terrorism are usually of a socio-economic character, poverty. Sometimes also they throw in a lack of knowledge of Islam. The idea being, if you really knew Islam, if you really knew the Quran, you wouldn't commit such acts. It's the other way around, really. And then there, of course, there's the Israeli-Arab conflict. There is the American foreign policy, and there is Western imperialism, and then there are often the Crusades. And even, I'm not making this up, even global warming. It's odd, it's very odd that global warming should only affect Muslims. So I go through all these. I show one by one that none of these explanations really hold up. For the socio-economic argument, I look at the work of Ibrahim, an Egyptian sociologist, Saad ad-Din Ibrahim. He did two very in-depth analyses of various terrorist groups which were in prison at the time in Egypt. He was rather surprised and pleased that they accepted to be interviewed by him. And he shows quite clearly, this is in 1977, between 1977 and 1979, he shows quite clearly that they were, the terrorists in prison were well educated. They knew a lot about Islam. Some of them were experts on Islamic law. They were well off from, some were even from the upper class, certainly middle class, and they were all employed. They were not out of work. They were not sort of bored and said, "Oh, let's go and commit a terrorist act or something." So I gave other examples of that, but I think I go into various other historians and analysts who also show the same thing, that the terrorists were not particularly poor or lacking in knowledge, as we shall see later. That people like Abdullah al-Azam, they had doctorates in the Sharia and so on, but I think the decisive argument was given by Ayatollah Khomeini. I think it's pretty. I had a wonderful long quote, but my editor convinced me to cut it down. But anyway, here it is. As David Wormser of the American Enterprise Institute observes, Westerners attribute too many of the Arab world's problems to specific material issues such as land and wealth. This usually means a tendency to belittle belief and strict adherence to principle as genuine and dismiss it as a cynical exploitation of the masses by politicians. As such, Western observers see material issues and leaders, not the spiritual state of the Arab world, as the heart of the problem. Here is an illuminating reply to this kind of explanation from the Ayatollah Khomeini. In August 24th, 1979, a speech he gave in Qum, he said, quote, "Economics is a matter for the donkey. Our people made the revolution for Islam, not for the Persian melon." Even more conclusive is another lengthy reply uttered in late 1979, in which he spells out the raison d'etre of the Iranian Revolution. Quote, this is direct quote, these are the words of Khomeini. "This movement, which from start to finish took about 15, 16 years in which much blood was given and young people were lost. It is our belief that this was all for Islam. I cannot, and no intelligent person can imagine that it could be said that we gave our blood so that melons would be less expensive, that we gave up our young men so that the houses would be less expensive. It is for Islam that a person can give up his life. Our saints also gave up their lives for Islam, not for economics. That a person would want an economic system and would sacrifice his life so that the economic situation would be improved, this is not sensible. End of quote.